morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to the Syndicate Theory Podcast, where we delve deep into a broad spectrum of topics such as politics, the unexplained, science, and much more the world and universe has to offer. Today's topic, digital currency. Some of the questions we will answer are: what is digital currency? What's it used for? Is it an alternative? How is it beneficial? Will it replace less stable currency? Concerns and risk. We as a Syndicate Theory will discuss these questions with information found in various research conducted by individuals and the government while keeping an open mind on this topic. If you find yourself tuning into our podcast or recording and enjoy the topics we discuss, please subscribe and leave a like.
Plug in. Let's roll. Welcome to the Syndicate Theory Podcast. I'm Cole.
I'm Duke.
And today we're going on a treasure hunt.
What kind of treasure hunt?
Well, there's this thing called cryptocurrency. We're going to be
talking about digital currency?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing. You probably heard of it. We're going to be looking at it, looking into it, looking back at it, looking forward. Where's this digital journey taking us? We're going to be looking into the whole thing. Past, present, and future. Exactly. So good news is, if you missed out on this roller coaster ride of cryptocurrency, don't worry. No one should blame you. We're going to get into it. It was really hard to spot this trend developing. So, Duke, here's my thing. Where would you say the starting line was for this whole cryptocurrency bonanza that we see ourselves in today?
Well,
in May of 2021.
Well, of course, the start of currency like 2,000 years ago, right? Bartering and trading, correct? But now for cryptocurrency, I would say the start would be probably around 1998, which it wasn't cryptocurrency at this point. It was just the inspiration for it. Now we all know that U.S. Constitution forbids us from like printing or minting our own currency, right? Or anything that will compete or undercut the reliance of the U.S. dollar.
Right. So if you're doing it, anyone out there is doing it, you might want to cut that out.
Yeah, you stop that now. No.
Yeah, that would be.
It started with a guy named Bernard von Nothaus. Okay. You ever heard of the Liberty Bill?
Yeah, I have heard of the Liberty Bill.
So yeah, 1998 it was created. It was available in gold, silver, platinum, copper, and in warehouse receipts, which are basically like printed paper bills in a sense, and some that you shouldn't be doing in the first place, and in digital form. But it was a huge thing because, you know, people actually thought that it was like minted by the government, right? But it wasn't, right? So I guess it was advertised wrong. But Bernard von Nothaus was the creator of the Liberty Bill. Like I said, I'll restate that it was created in 1998. He was also the co-founder of the Royal Hawaiian Mint Company. And he was also a co-founder of an organization called National Organization for the Repeal of Federal Reserve and Internal Revenue Code.
That seems like something that would raise a few flags for federal investigators.
No, it did. So the FBI claimed that NorFed's purpose was to mix Liberty dollars into current money of the United States. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's kind of like founding a company that says like, no, we're not doing anything wrong. Inc.
Oh no, just wait, I got something for you. But yeah, no. And they said that it was because they're basically trying to limit the reliance on the U.S. dollar bill, which, I mean, come on, man. If we got something new that we can use, I mean, just let us use it, man. You don't always have to like watch over us, right? But
Yeah,
no, okay.
I just think you wouldn't want to say that overtly.
Yeah. I take that back. So FBI, if you're listening, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I'm just saying for him, uh, for the Liberty Bill, as far as saying
right.
we're trying to limit
Hmm.
reliance on the U.S. dollar, because that's the kind of thing that I think the law is trying to prohibit, right?
Yeah, that's true. But what he did was kind of innovative. I think it was pretty interesting, right? And which I'll get to. And yeah, no. I believe in 2011 he was found guilty for counterfeit coins.
Mm.
Um, and then I think in 2005, and this is where it gets really interesting, right? He inspired someone. All right. In 2005, Nothouse and his friend actually went to like this hacker convention in Amsterdam. Right. There's a young hacker, okay, by the alias of Satoshi Nakamoto. Do you know who that is?
Satoshi Nakamoto,
Yeah, Satoshi Nakamoto. He's the creator of
founder of
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But basically, the whole Liberty Dollar and Not House basically inspired him to create his own currency. And this is how Bitcoin basically started. And it's how it was born.
nice. My trail doesn't actually go back as far as the Liberty Bell, but
Right?
I definitely see the origin in terms of inspiring Satoshi Nakamoto
Right.
to develop
Because,
uh, uh,
yeah.
uh, develop alternative is probably like the worst word to use, because trying to come up with something to replace a de facto fiat currency, a government or central bank issued fiat currency, is prohibited. But a
And yes, please,
another
everyone out there, remember we are no longer backed by gold.
yeah. So we're coming up with something that's trying to replace in-use currency, in fact, is kind of an interesting idea. But as far as just the idea of the blockchain in and of itself, and we'll get into that in a little bit about what actually the blockchain is, that's cool. That's really cool. If you can have an idea that obviously didn't work because you know, Liberty Bill got people in trouble, but then it can inspire someone to come up with an idea that is pretty legitimate when you think about blockchain. But I go back to early 2000s, like around 2002,
Hmm.
and the reason is there was this company back then called Aspen Bio Inc., which was a small company that was a SEC registrant. So
Oh, okay.
they were they were cool with the SEC. SEC was like, okay, you can do your thing, and they were issuing shares in the over the counter market and private transactions. They didn't really make a ton of money. They pretty much financed themselves for the most part by issuing shares. So you got people who got
So
money
was
that,
it like private or public?
well, it's technically public because it's
Public, okay.
an SEC registrant,
Oh, yeah.
dealing in over the counter markets. But you have some of these shares that are kind of traded in private transactions in the sense that they are kind of issuing new shares to private individuals.
Hmm.
So it's technically public, but they're not really exchange traded. They're saying, hey, we need some more money. We're gonna issue another 500,000 units or shares. And then you have these market makers. So basically people who have clients who have money that they can invest in, right? And they try to
Right.
sell these pitches to their clients. So they Aspen Bio later became Aspen Biopharma in 2005. And then
Hmm.
as of 2016, they changed the name again to Vinaxis. And the company literally said in their SEC filings that, in their 8Ks, and they issued ongoing statements. And then in their 10K, they said they had experienced recurring losses and negative cash flows from
Right.
operations as of 2016. So they're basically losing money as of 2016. They renamed themselves Bioptics in November of 2016. And in their 2016 10K, it basically said that they had acquired a company. So Vinaxis, which used to be Aspen Biopharma, which used to be Aspen Bio Inc., had acquired a company called Bioptics Diagnostics, which they had some sort of proprietary technology for
resonance technology, right?
Yeah, plasma resonance technology, and then it had the ability to detect molecular interactions. So, not too sure what the commercial application of it would be, but it sounds cool.
Right.
You can detect molecular interactions. So I'm guessing researchers and even doctors might need that, especially medical labs. If there's something going on at the molecular level, this technology has the ability to detect it. So I guess you could maybe even detect cancer that way somehow. But yeah, they had this proprietary technology, and so they merged that name into the name of the company and changed it to Bioptics after they acquired Bioptics. But this is really interesting. So this all went down in September of 2016. And so I want you to remember that date because exactly a year later, in September of 2017, they made another acquisition. And that's where this really gets interesting. But in addition to this plasma technology to detect molecular interactions, they had a license with Washington University in St. Louis to sublicense its veterinary technologies. So Washington U is obviously not a company, it's a university, but they had developed proprietary technology, veterinary technologies. And so they got Bioptics to sublicense it, just basically sell those licenses to use this stuff to other companies. So they were doing some stuff, right? I mean, they had some business going on, but even in their 2016 10K, they're saying they're not making a lot of money, right? And so your 10K is your annual filing. So they're basically saying for the year of 2016, they didn't really turn a profit. So 2017, Bioptics entered into an agreement to buy another company called Go Numerical. They bought $3 million worth of units of Go Numerical, which was a leading Canadian blockchain company.
There we go.
Known as CoinSquare, right? And then what they did was one of the subsidiaries they acquired was called, you've probably heard of this one, Riot Blockchain.
Yes.
So this is interesting. So on September 29th of 2017, they bought this Go Numerical company, which had, was this leading Canadian blockchain company. And they also acquired in that the subsidiary Riot Blockchain. That's September 2019, 2017. On October 2nd, 2017, so some 4 days later, the board of directors of the company decided to merge Bioptics into Riot Blockchain, which can happen. So they acquired the company in order to merge down into it. So to merge the subsidiary into the parent company and cease the existence as a subsidiary. So they basically changed their name to Riot Blockchain at this point and acquired any of the blockchain interests of the company. So
they go from pharma all the way to, in a sense, technology, like blockchain technology.
Yeah. So they weren't, as of their 2016 filing, they weren't really making money in the biopharma space. So by 2016, blockchain and Bitcoin start to gain relevancy. And so they literally acquired a company to move into the Bitcoin and blockchain space. And so according to their 2017 investor presentation, their primary focus is on Bitcoin and Ethereum as cryptos. And so they've been trading since 2017 as Riot Blockchain. And their goal is to increase their mining operations of Bitcoin. So they're a Bitcoin miner.
No, I could completely understand that. Okay, I just want to do this really quick. So Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the reason why they got into this. Okay, so it's considered one of the original cryptocurrencies. It was created in 2009, right? The guy that actually created it, we already went over, Satoshi Nakamoto. Right, Bitcoin allows the users to make transparent peer-to-peer transactions. Right, payments are secured through algorithms within a block, and only the owner of the Bitcoin can decrypt with the actual private key. Now, this is what's interesting, right? So I can see where they're going with this. Maybe they actually had a little bit of, I guess, I don't know, maybe some insider trading about Bitcoin, where it was going to go. But as of today, 2021, one Bitcoin is worth, can you guess? One Bitcoin. 1 Bitcoin.
I'm guessing it's worth a lot more than those Mario coins when with Super Mario used to jump up and collect.
$56,000. $56,049.90. All right. And it's
That's more
crazy
than a
because
lot of people's annual salaries.
exactly. And the thing is that, okay, well, yeah, it's more than most people's annual salaries, right? But if you want to buy Bitcoin, you can buy a percentage of a Bitcoin, which is nuts. Um, but yeah, it's very beneficial. So I understand their point in that. And then if we were to go to Ethereum, and depending on which Ethereum it is, I think it's ETH. It was created in 2015. Ethereum is a type of cryptocurrency that's open source platform based on blockchain technology. Um, it's basically the same thing as Bitcoin, basically, right?
So, dude,
Um,
break it down for me. You keep saying blockchain technology. What exactly is blockchain technology?
let me get to that. Just 1 second though. Ethereum is worth $3,585.34 just for one Ethereum coin. Now, if
Which
we
is
were to
more than some
go,
people's monthly salaries. So
yeah, I know,
we're,
right?
we're, we're talking we're talking some serious numbers.
That was a missed investment by me. Oh my god. So no, blockchain, really interesting. Blockchain is a specific type of database. It differs from typical database in the way that it stores information, right? So, blockchain store data in blocks that are eventually, as its name, chained together. Uh, it's got data that comes into the fresh block is basically like a ledger. Um, so
And a
once a
ledger is
block,
basically just a list, right, of
yeah,
those
it's
transactions.
yeah, it's filled with yeah, exactly. It's filled with data, and then once one block is done, then it goes to the next block, right? So it's pretty interesting. There's different types of information on the blockchain, but the most common use for it, as far as just like I stated, it's a ledger for transactions. Very
Nice.
interesting
So,
stuff,
so
man.
it's a
Very
data structure.
exactly right. And I think it's really interesting because we're getting into this, and this is all private, right? So
Mhm.
there are people that they actually pay with Bitcoin right now to go and basically keep this structure up, like the blockchains up, these ledgers, and they pay them with Bitcoin, which I find interesting. So it's private, but it's ran very well.
Mhm. And it's decentralized, right? Which is kind of the value in it, and
Right.
one of
No
the big
taxation.
differences between it and government or central bank issued currencies.
Right, right. No, definitely.
Nice. I like it. I like it.
And no, and I can also get into the algorithm, right? And let's just do this too. Within it, it has an algorithm, right? And this is basically a procedure or formula used for solving problems, right? It's based on conducting a sequence of specified actions in which these actions describe how to do something, which is pretty neat
Mhm.
because like it for you in order to have like Bitcoin, basically you have to have an actual digital wallet, right? And as it was explained to me, there's two keys, right? I think they consider it one private, one public. So basically, it kind of helps nullify, well, as best as it can, money transactions. So if I were to pay you, right, basically that information goes out and says, hey, okay, Duke is going to pay Cole 3 Bitcoins, right? And then it basically goes through these ledgers and it verifies if it really is me or not. And then once I do the payment, it comes out of private. So it's very interesting technology. It's very interesting, but to me, as of right now, man, it's more of a usage for investment rather than the ability to pay for some a transaction.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So where are we at now? I mean, how did we go from this, like you said, this random hackers convention in Amsterdam, or this sort of tech convention in Amsterdam, from sparking the idea to create Bitcoin to the actual creation of Bitcoin to this current frenzy, fantastic voyage, bonanza, whatever word you want to use for it, for
Hmm.
Bitcoin. So how do we go from this technology that I guess really didn't exist until Bitcoin came along, the idea of the blockchain, and
Mm-hmm.
then to its current sort of growing acceptance, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, what I've seen, it was kind of it was for a niche community. And that was back
Mm-hmm.
in 2011. And it was mainly for the guys that really understood it were the people from like the technology space, the hackers, hedge fund, and then bankers. And I think you were telling me about how it was used in a bad way too, as well. I think we were talking about the Silk Road.
Yeah, which is actually why I start back with Aspen Bio, which later 12 years later became Riot Blockchain, because
Right.
this year Coinbase went public, and Coinbase is a basically an exchange
Hmm.
for cryptocurrencies.
Of
Right? So it
course.
went public back in March of 2021, and it was kind of this big thing. But that's why I always highlight the Riot blockchain, because Riot blockchain didn't go public per se. It was already a publicly traded company in the
Hmm.
biopharma space. It just slid into the cryptocurrency space because it wasn't doing as well. So that's
Right.
why for me it kind of starts with Riot blockchain, this sort of general acceptance of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. Just because when you go public as a company, it kind of gives you a sense of legitimacy,
Of course.
because you have to file a lot of paperwork. You generally need some sort of underwriting, some sort of bank or investment bank to underwrite the
Investors.
shares. Right.
Yeah.
They basically do an underwriting is basically doing the research, figuring out what the thing is worth, and deciding on a number of shares to issue, and then how much those shares should sell for. And
Hmm.
they're also market makers. They have some investment funds and things like that who are waiting in the background, ready to buy these shares when they go public, so they can kind of boost the price. They can justify the price, right? Because if you want to sell a stock or a latest issue on a stock exchange for a certain price, if nobody's buying at that price, what happens? The price is going to drop. So that's kind of their function in this. So there's always this sense of legitimacy whenever you start listing publicly on an exchange. And the whole point of legitimacy, I think, kind of highlights where we are now, because there's more legitimacy behind Bitcoin, which is why it justifies that price that you just gave us. What was it? 56,000?
Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing illegitimate is going to sell for 56,000 per coin, right? You have
But
to
it
have a
it
certain
depends the
legitimacy.
backing, right?
Hmm.
It depends on the backing, because if you look right now, right, the Dogecoin for a while was actually doing really well, which is another cryptocurrency, and the person that was backing it, of course, was someone that was very legitimate, right, and that was Elon Musk,
Oh,
right? So now
okay.
you have yeah, now you have his followers doing the same thing, right? I mean, because
Yeah.
he's legitimate, right? I mean, look at the companies he started.
Hmm.
Look at the efforts he's put in for society. I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, if you have someone like that backing it, right?
Exactly. Which
Exactly.
which is why you have kind of like the street term legit, right? Oh, that's legit. Yeah, it has some value, right? It's not just something
Legitimacy. Yeah.
someone created and it's just complete fiction. But yeah, you mentioned Silk Road. I always bring that up just because Silk Road was a digital marketplace that was launched back in 2011. So it was post Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, as you just told us, was a 2009 creation. But Silk
Mhm.
Road was this digital marketplace on Tor, which Tor is a different type of web browser that you can
Right.
download if you want to surf the dark web. Because
Right.
basically, the commercial web browsers access a very small portion of the web. I've heard different things. I've heard anywhere from only 10% of the web is available on commercial web browsers, or somewhere around 5%. I think I've even heard 1%, and 99% is the dark web or something like that. But it's pretty much conclusive that a substantial portion of the internet is on the dark web, which you need a special browser. Generally, the Tor browser is what people use, the Tor
Hmm.
and browser, and it accesses this other part of the
Are
internet.
you telling me you've tried this, Cole?
I can neither confirm nor deny, my access to the dark web. But what I will say is that there was this this digital marketplace called Silk Road back in 2011, and it basically became known as just a drug dealing bazaar. Bazaar is in like a marketplace, like the bazaars you go to, and buy basically whatever. So,
Right.
and when I say drug dealing, I'm not talking about ibuprofen or anything like that. I'm talking about illegal
Yeah.
drugs. And
Yeah.
so it had a short life. The
Well,
Silk
one would
Road.
think.
Yeah, it
Because
had a
you
short
can buy aspirin at a local CVS or
your local drugstore. Yeah, yeah. But now if you're just one of those people stuck in a basement somewhere and you just don't like to get out much, you can always go on tour and get some, I guess, experimental drugs. I don't know what they're selling on there, but it didn't last very long. It launched in 2011, and by October of 2013, it was shut down by the FBI just because of the illicit nature of the activity. And one of the reasons why Bitcoin, when it sort of first debuted, had this shady reputation is because it facilitated transactions of this nature. Because
what was the guy's name? What was the guy's name that got into a lot of trouble for that for Silk Road?
there's a guy by the name of Charlie Shrem, which is
Charlie Sheen.
interesting because Charlie Shrem was a Bitcoin co-founder. He was actually
Oh,
not Bitcoin itself, but the Bitcoin Foundation. So the Bitcoin Foundation was an organization, likewise no longer around anymore, but it was an organization that was founded in September of 2012 to basically sort of promote the Bitcoin experience, to get more people to interact with Bitcoin, become familiar with it, perhaps mine some Bitcoin or
well,
purchase some
no,
Bitcoin.
that makes a lot of sense because a lot of people, even though Nothouse stated it was a hacker, right, that
Hmm.
started Bitcoin that went by the alias of Satoshi Nakamoto. A lot of people don't know if Satoshi Nakamoto is an actual group, one person, two people, so it makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
Yeah, it could just be an account where all these Bitcoins are stored.
Several.
Because I think,
Yeah,
because I think Satoshi Nakamoto still has what, like 10% of all Bitcoin or something like that.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, so
that's a lot.
yeah, I wouldn't feel sorry for him. I mean, no one knows who he is, but I'm sure he's popular with whoever knows his true identity because he could pay for
Elon Musk.
college
No, I'm
or
just kidding.
but I have heard that rumor. I've heard the rumor that Elon Musk is actually the creator of Bitcoin, and now he's pumping up Dogecoin. But yeah, so Bitcoin, and this is why I kind of focus not necessarily on the creation of Bitcoin, but on the establishment of its legitimacy. Just because you
Right.
can create anything you want. I mean, you can be tinkering in your garage, but unless you can
Mhm.
get it legitimized, unless you can get it peer
Right.
reviewed, and this is why even with science, whenever someone claims they were able to do something in a lab,
Well,
it
there has to
always
be a
has
lot of
to be
research. Yeah.
exactly. It has to
And
be peer
tested.
reviewed, and then it has to be repeatable, right? Because if you're saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, I created a black hole in my lab in my garage," and I was
Mhm.
okay. Tell me how you did it. If I can't repeat it, then
I don't
you
know.
might,
Well,
yeah, you might be gaming, right? And so this is why I kind of focus on legitimacy. So Silk Road was one of those things that kind of, when Bitcoin became a little bit more known, kind of was a kind of a blow to its reputation. It was really deflating for Bitcoin. So in 2012, the Bitcoin Foundation was co-founded by a lot of guys who were kind of prominent in the space. A guy named Patrick Merck, who was like the general counsel of the Bitcoin Foundation, the
mhm.
lawyer. Charlie Shrem, who we just mentioned, got in some trouble for actually facilitating transactions on the Silk Road marketplace. So it doesn't really help your organization if you're trying to bolster the reputation of Bitcoin and get more people to share the Bitcoin experience, if you're getting arrested for aiding and abetting money transactions on Silk Road, which is a marketplace that's known for people buying illicit drugs. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you really got to think about who you go into business with.
Well, just something to add to that. It wasn't just the Silk Road, right? A little bit after that, it was the Atlantis website. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's along the same thing. So I'm not gonna take too long to explain this, but it was a bunch of people that basically said, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna sell drugs as well on the dark web." But they marketed it by saying, "You know what? If you buy the drugs from us, right?" And they didn't care if the FBI saw it or the ATF or whoever, or the DEA. they basically just said that, hey, if you buy in Bitcoin, and we provide anonymity to all our buyers. So yeah, man, I look at it in the sense that digital currency is a way of the future, but we gotta kind of find a way to kind of get rid of some of this bad stuff, right? Because
The bad
like you were
juju.
stating earlier, right? Yeah, it's legitimacy, right? But now if you have these, drug dealers, it's all about preference and view, how people look at things. If I look at Bitcoin in the sense for an investment because it'll make me a lot of money, you're going to do it, right? But if you look at digital currency in the sense that, oh man, these are what all the, like, cartels and these drug dealers and all this, like, kind of use on, I might back away from it. So I think
Exactly.
that's something that's holding it back right now. And I think if they can just make it more legitimate, then I mean it'll be a good run as opposed to just only an investment.
Yeah, I use the term Bitcoin laundering in the sense of laundering its reputation, just cleaning it
Putting
up
in
a
the
little bit.
washer.
Yeah, because like you said, all of these dark web marketplaces,
Yeah.
even just the term dark web. I mean, does that sound like someplace you want to go?
Well,
Like,
that's
follow me
how a
to the
lot of
dark web.
well, that, and that's the intriguing part of it, is because a lot of these guys that are doing, like, I guess you could say illegal, or not even that, even businesses, um, they launder money like that. I mean, right? Bitcoin turned into cash. It's
Yeah,
very intelligent,
buy
but
Bitcoin with illicit funds. Wait for the
yeah.
price. Yeah, it could theoretically be done because if you bought Bitcoin with illicit funds
Well,
and
no, it's
then
already
the
been done.
price goes
Yeah.
exactly right, the price
Yeah.
goes up, you sell the Bitcoin. Now you have legitimate funds mixed
Right.
in because of the difference between what you bought it for and what you sold it for, right?
Right.
And so it's technically all legitimate at this point because and that's kind of how laundering works, right? And anytime you can mix legitimate money with illegitimate money, it becomes laundered because it's almost indistinguishable what part of it was legitimate and illegitimate. You have to have some huge digital and accounting forensic people looking at this and pay them a lot of money, and generally even governmental organizations have limited resources to do this kind of stuff. So
Well, yeah. Not only that, it can make a bad name, right? I think you were telling me about, I think something like in 2014 about this guy named Bobby Lee or something like that.
oh yeah, Bobby Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah, Big Bobby. Bobby was actually associated with the Bitcoin Foundation. So this
Ah,
is kind of like the one step forward, two steps back story of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, because Bitcoin is
well,
kind of
digital currency. Yeah, exactly.
the lead.
Could I
Exactly.
let me explain that really quick? I
Go
think,
ahead.
just for people that don't understand. All right. So digital currency is regulated or unregulated currency that's available only in a digital or an electronic form. Okay. And then you have virtual currencies, which is an unregulated digital currency that is controlled by its developer, right? So the founding organization, or a defined network protocol.
Mhm.
Cryptocurrency is a virtual currency that uses cryptography. Okay, that's the big difference. Cryptography to secure and verify transactions, as well as to manage the control and creation of new currency units. So, yeah, the biggest deal is that, all is digital currency, but not all is cryptocurrency, right? Because it
Exactly.
has
And
to have
this is why they get kind of interchangeably used, because generally speaking, when you're talking about a digital currency, the most popular ones are the cryptos just because they're secure, right? Because
very
they're, like
secure,
you
yeah,
said, they're encrypted.
which makes it legitimate. Back to legitimacy,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Getting back to that idea of legitimacy, like, it's only valuable if it has some legitimacy. Like I said, you created the black hole in your garage under peer review. No one else could repeat the experiment and create the same results. So it doesn't have a lot of validity to that statement. But
Right.
yeah, going back to Bobby Lee. So he actually ended up becoming one of the board members of the Bitcoin Foundation, because we already said Charlie Shrem got arrested back in 2014 and sentenced to 2 years in prison for aiding and abetting illegal money transactions on the Silk Road. So he was one of the Bitcoin Foundation co-founders. So it just doesn't help. I mean, I understand the individuals' actions can be separate from the foundation, but it just doesn't help in terms of the PR for Bitcoin in general. When you have a Bitcoin Foundation that's supposed to promote the acceptance of Bitcoin, and one of your co-founders gets arrested. But it didn't really help very much to replace him with Bobby Lee either, because Bobby Lee was he was the CEO of BTC China, and he was a venture and something of a venture capitalist, and he was appointed to the board after this whole scandal with Charlie Shrim, and just to fill the vacancies, right? Because obviously you're gonna have to resign from a board if you're in prison. I guess you could still be on the board if you're in jail, but most companies don't like that kind of PR. So
Yeah.
Shrimp's off the board because he's doing his two stretch in prison, and then Bobby Lee comes on the board, and then 10 people at the Bitcoin Foundation resigned due to allegations dating back to 2000 from one of the people who joined with Bobby Lee, and then Brock Pierce, right? So Bobby Lee and Brock Pierce came on to the board of directors together, and they at the same time to replace both Shrim and Karpeles, who was a one of the board members who left during the whole Charlie Shrim thing, and so Brock Pierce had allegations from back in 2000 of pressuring minors into sexual activity.
Well,
And
I hope
so
he got his ass handed to him.
Well, that's definitely not going to help boost the reputation. So
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
talk about one of your co-founders going to prison for 2 years for aiding and abetting illicit transactions on a dark web website, and then one of the people who replaced him when he came out, Brock Pierce, he was basically implicated in some inappropriate activity with minors. So
Right.
yeah, not doing very well for this company. So as you would imagine, this company ended up becoming insolvent. So it didn't get shut down necessarily like the Silk Road did. Silk Road actually got shut down by the FBI,
Right.
but the company just became insolvent. They had serious cash flow issues. I mean, how are you going to raise money with this kind of reputation? So this kind of
Legitimacy. Yeah.
yeah, this kind of really hurt the reputation of Bitcoin, because a foundation, the Bitcoin Foundation, that was literally founded to sort of influence the public mindset about Bitcoin and try to bolster the reputation of Bitcoin was probably one of the worst foundations in history, just given the activities of some of the people who were involved in it, in terms of trying to do something positive, and you have all these people with negative reputations running around on your board. But one of the things that did sort of bolster it, and this is kind of like a lot of back and forth, because step forward, two steps back. In April of 2012, so this is actually a little bit before the Bitcoin Foundation was created, because it was created in September of 2012. So you're talking some 5 months prior. Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss.
The Winklevoss, yeah.
Yeah, you might recognize that name, Winklevoss. So they're identical twins. They're actually
the guy with Facebook, right?
Depending on where you fall on
Zuckerberg
on the Facebook story. Yeah, they're apparently the original creators of the Facebook idea, not necessarily Facebook, but they came up with the
concept.
Yeah. For Facebook, and hired Mark Zuckerberg to help them out, and then they say he maybe took some liberties with their idea, but it's all been settled in court, and so they're onto their own things. But they revealed they had about approximately 1% of all Bitcoin in circulation back in 2012. They spent about 11 million, because they did settle with Mark Zuckerberg. They both got paid millions, so they spent about 11 million to buy Bitcoin back in 2012. So if you're saying it's worth 56,000 in 2021, if you spend 11 million on Bitcoin back in the day in 2012, you're probably doing all right. And so they said they began buying when the value of a single coin was in the single digits. So don't know exactly how much Bitcoin they actually had and how much they actually paid for it, but they're doing pretty well. In fact, they're both considered to be billionaires right now. So they did all right.
Oh, well, yeah, because if you think about it, I mean, one coin is worth 56,000 something dollars.
And they're saying they bought it when it was in the single digits.
Yeah, so that's wow.
Yeah, so
a lot of gains there.
Once again,
I feel kind of bad for not doing that, not investing. So
exactly. So this is kind of the moral of the Bitcoin story. If you didn't get in early, don't beat yourself up over it. There's no way you could have seen it. I mean, especially when you look at this sort of one step forward, two steps back. Bitcoin Foundation, a lot of the dealings that of this company, as far as the regulatory environment, people getting arrested, going to jail, people having some serious
Look,
allegations against them, and this is
yeah,
the organization that's supposed to try to build the rep of Bitcoin, right? You look
yeah,
at that, and then plus you look at Bitcoin is the favored currency of everybody who's trading on Silk Road, which is
yeah. Well, I
your
think
go-to nonstop shop for illicit drug use, right?
that's the issue, though. That's the issue, though. I think, and it happens with just our currency that we have right now, right? If you
Hmm.
put like the big banks or government in charge, right, in charge of all this money, something's going to happen, right?
Hmm.
You can't entrust somebody, an individual or several people, to control this money because for some reason, pockets start getting really thick. You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying? So it correlates with the Bitcoin, right? I think if we can kind of get rid of that, and I guess all these deficiencies with currency in general,
Hmm.
then I think Bitcoin might have a chance of taking over. But once again, we have to make sure that we keep that legitimacy. If we can keep that legitimacy, then it'd be good because the legitimacy for investment is really good, but using it as currency for a transaction, like if I were to go to the store, that's another issue, right? Because now we're looking
Hmm.
at, I think they said that only like 3,000 businesses, and we're just talking about the United
Hmm.
States, right? 3,000 businesses take Bitcoin as a form of transaction,
Hmm.
right? But that's such a small percentage because there's over 30 million businesses in the
Hmm.
United States, right? So, if that can spread and more businesses will take Bitcoin, I think it'll take off.
Yeah, and once again, like I said, if you missed out on, on Bitcoin, here's the thing. You might want to pat yourself on the back because it probably means you're a good person. Because in those early days, it was people trying to buy illicit drugs on some of these dark web marketplaces that were big fans of Bitcoin.
Of course, but I don't think the creators actually had that in mind, right?
Of course not. But back then, no one really understood what it was. It's only
It's that
coming up.
niche
Yeah,
stuff,
it's only
yeah.
coming up in the news. Is this this currency that's favored by people who are transacting on the dark web? So, like I said, if you
Yeah.
missed out on it, it's probably because you're a good person. And as far as the wider acceptance, it's yeah, it's one of those things that's becoming more widely accepted, even to the point of Dogecoin, right? Because we know how
Mhm.
Dogecoin started, right?
Right.
It was
Uh,
basically to lampoon all of these cryptos, all
it was
these
by those
digital
two
currencies.
IBM guys,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
software engineers,
yeah,
correct?
Billy Marcus and Jackson Palmer, right?
Oh my
They wanted
goodness.
to create basically it was kind of like a meme. It should have been called meme coin maybe, because it was a meme coin to basically kind of like spoof all of these wannabe coins that started popping up when Bitcoin became more and more famous. And
Hmm.
they used this dog, this cute little dog, the Shiba,
Yeah, Shiba
as their
Inu.
meme,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, so but it's now has some legitimacy, right? You said that Elon Musk was trying to fist bump
He's backing it.
the
Just I
Dogecoin.
think I think currently 2 days ago. What day is today? So we're looking at 5/10/2021,
Hmm.
right? I think it occurred on the 8th that he's still trying to rally the Dogecoin. So we'll
Right.
see because it actually went down. But I think that once again, like it goes back to the whole thing, like uh, the value of some of these cryptocurrencies just besides Bitcoin and Ethereum is very it's just not certain, right? So one day it'll
Hmm.
be down, the next day it'll be up. So it's just like any other stock. But if we can get something where it's just, I guess, maybe one as opposed to several, because like I said, dude, Cole, there's a lot of digital currency. I'm talking about what like you got Bitcoin Cash, you have Ethereum Classic as opposed to Ethereum, you have Zcash. In what I think there's another one called Litecoin. Yeah, if we could just find one way or like one digital currency to kind of back, I think that'd be better. I think you were telling me something about that, and like the government is now trying to do some type of digital currency.
Yeah, actually governments,
Governments,
multiple
okay, sorry about
governments,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
multiple governments are looking at trying to do that because it has a lot of applications, really. One is basically a secured transaction ledger, kind of like we said, kind of like the whole point of it.
right.
But another is to kind of update some of the current facilities they have out there. So in the US, there's this thing called the FedWire, which is old. It's actually called the FedWire because the act that created it, the basic implementation of it, was the Federal Reserve Wire Network, which was created over 100 years ago. So if you missed
Right.
the centennial anniversary, don't worry about it. No one really no one really celebrates the FedWire system, the Federal Reserve Wire Network, but it was created in 1918. So here we are in 2021, 3 years after its centennial anniversary, and it was basically a check clearing system because back in the day, you had these banks, and banks wouldn't cash checks from other banks. They didn't trust each other, right? So you have Duke Bank, right? And Duke Bank's some big city New York bank, and here I have my
Yeah,
bank,
that's my
Coal
bank,
Bank,
man.
from the some small town in Kansas, and one of my customers travels to New York, wants to cash his check, and you look at this check like, what, Coal Bank out of some small town in Kansas? You're like, nope, right? Turn this guy away, and I mean, that might be his lunch money right there.
Unless it's Superman. Yeah, it's just something
Exactly.
different, right?
Like Clark Kent, you don't know who that is, right? Some reporter at the Daily Planet, who cares? So that was kind of the problem with this. Your funds could be good. You could have $50 in this bank, and that's you're spending money for while you're on vacation in New York visiting relatives or whatever, but they won't cash your check. And so they created this system called the Federal Reserve Wire Network, the FedWire Network,
Hmm.
just to be as a check clearing system to give confidence to these banks to trust each other, right? It's way different than it was now. It's way different than it is now because it used to kind of be like wild, wild west stuff. You got banks popping up all over the place. Like, how can I trust it? Goes back to what we were saying, legitimacy, right? So that's why the system was created. And it was originally created as a telegraph system. So, I mean, you're talking old school technology, right? Then
Yeah,
in the
very old school.
70s,
Yeah.
it got boosted up to computers, but still, computer systems back in the 70s are kind of slow, kind of clunky. And the whole point of the blockchain is that it's quick and secure and you can trust the ledger.
Right.
So they've been talking about the idea. The Federal Reserve has been exploring these ways to make blockchain a register called FedCoin. At least
And
that's kind
let
of like the
and
pilot
let's
thing.
just do this. And I just want to explain this because I don't think a lot of people out there know this. And if you do, I apologize. But we're just here to spread knowledge. So the Federal Reserve, is it public or private?
It is theoretically semi-public, semi-private, but it's owned by the member banks. So if you go
There
to
we
your
go.
local bank on the corner, it probably owns shares of the Federal Reserve System, and the more shares they own, the more they can borrow from the Federal Reserve and then turn around and loan that money out. And then they also get a share of the profits of the Federal Reserve. So it's partially public, partially private. It's public in the sense that the board, a lot of the people who work at the Federal Reserve in the upper echelon, like the chairman, is sort of an appointee.
Right.
So it's a kind of like almost like a cabinet position for the
Hmm.
administration. So that person gets appointed to that position and by the president. And so in that sense, it's public. Whereas a complete private company, you couldn't like, no one has any say on who represents the or who makes up the board.
Right.
But you can vote for the president, and then the president will appoint someone to become the Fed chairman. So public in that sense, but then as far as who actually owns it, technically the people of the U.S. or the states or
Supposedly.
anything like
Yeah.
that don't actually own it per se. They It's owned by the member banks that are loaning out the money. So
And they're trying to make a what were you stating again?
the Fed coin. So
The Fed coins, right?
yeah, they're saying possibly a dollar replacement, but it's basically the Federal Reserve exploring ways to make a blockchain register. Possibly a dollar replacement, but that would be. I think whenever you're dealing with something like these new ideas, trying to forecast it as
Do you
something.
believe it's a way
Yeah.
to control and taxate?
This is part of the concern with it. I don't think
Okay.
a dollar replacement would be necessarily the way you would want to think about it right now, even though that's part of the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
But it is raising privacy concerns. I mean, basically, it's supposed to be a modernization of FedWire, right? Because FedWire went
Right.
from telegraph back in the early 1900s to computers in like the 1970s, and then as computer systems modernize, it gets better. But this system handles a lot of clearing. It in 2016 it did 767 trillion in clearing in terms of check clearing, right? So it's doing a lot. So
That's a lot.
exactly. So the more computing power, or the better design, something like a blockchain, that kind of data structure might help,
Right.
and it being encrypted would secure these transactions. So they're always looking for ways to improve, right? As the economy expands, more and more transactions. But the privacy concerns are the government would be able to see if it did replace the dollar, right? Not saying it will, but that's part of the conversation, that it will allow the government to basically track every transaction you make. So the government would basically know what your habits are, right? If you're shopping online buying something, the government would have access to that transaction because it would be part of the ledger. So
Very
not sure
interesting.
if anyone wants that level of oversight,
Right.
but it would be a lot faster in terms of clearing, and it would be theoretically more secure. So sometimes you gain something, but you lose something else.
Right. And then once again, like I think one of the issues is government control, as we were stating earlier.
Hmm.
I think that's where it's kind of lost because at that point, just something small, like a small statement, like the government can't even determine how much currency to print in response to any type of like external internal pressures. And I think you're telling me that, like, I think even Turkey right now has banned it, right?
Yeah, which is kind of the one step forward, two steps back, right?
Right.
So the the federal government in the United States of America, at least the Federal Reserve System, which is the central bank, is
Hmm.
looking at trying to explore ways how they can adopt this,
Right.
and not necessarily as an attack on any of the cryptocurrencies out there, but
Hmm.
just a way to sort of modernize, sort of go with the
Right.
flow, maybe.
Right.
Turkey, on the other hand, in April of 2021, April of this year, decided to ban the use of crypto in commerce, citing the irreparable damage and transaction risk. Whenever they
Ah,
use general terms like that, I don't think you ever really know why they did it, because irreparable damage and transaction risk is one of those things.
farce.
Yeah, without giving specific examples, like
Exactly.
irreparable damage, who got damaged? Like if you give me specific
Right.
cases, which is kind of how the law works in the U.S. in terms of case law, like, oh, something happened to someone, and then this was the case, right? That created that rule or whatever. But whenever they don't cite the specifics of the damage they're talking about, and in terms of like, okay, did somebody, did some company lose $500 million or something like that?
Hmm.
Transaction risk. Is there a lot of cases of fraud or something like that? That part, it's hard to understand just because the cryptos are encrypted. That's why they're called cryptos. And we talked earlier about why the system is secure.
Yeah,
Right.
but like, yeah, the thing is that what a lot of people understand is cryptocurrency is basically like cash, right? Hands-on cash, right? So
Mhm.
if there is like a scammer that's out there that's like, let's just say he's selling TVs and you pay for it, right? But you're scammed, you don't get your money back, right? It's kind of like almost in that sense, you going and trying to buy a TV off the street, at like some deal where it says, they're clearing out. It's a clearing out sale, and you go buy it, and it's filled with bricks. Well, you pay cash. Guess what? It's gone. So I can kind of see what they're saying.
Yeah, I think to say that it the transaction risk is higher than it normally otherwise would be dealing in cash. I mean, it's like playing three card Monty, right? when
Right.
some dudes on the street, playing with the cards. All right, I'm gonna shuffle the cards around. Tell me which one's your card. It's
Yeah.
it's you can play that game with cash. Usually you are. I don't know if the three card Monty guy takes crypto, but the risk is inherent within in the game. The hustler, the street hustler playing three card Monty is trying to hustle you. You're supposed to lose your money in that transaction. So I think the same risk applies. You kind of got to be careful, especially if you're transacting on the dark web. Of course, they wouldn't be there if they were the most upstanding citizens, I think. So I think the same risk applies. So it was, but they did elaborate. They basically said their use in payments may cause non-recoverable losses for the parties to the transaction and include elements that may undermine the confidence in the methods and instruments used currently in payments.
So it's like a catch-21, right?
Yeah, I just don't see how it's different than any transaction. I mean, you kind of have to know who you're
Right.
dealing with, right?
Well, I say that in the sense that if we go private and Bitcoin is the future of currency, because I mean you're always going to see this evolution of currency, right? You go back 2,000 years ago, right? People were bartering with like wheat, rice, all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into the Roman period, right? That's when they started like minting their own money, right? You got the blacksmiths sitting there just hammering away, creating money,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they used to taxate money because they realized that debt was really good, right? It was good for the government. So they actually used to take pieces of like people's coin away, right, as tax.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're looking, at our government now. In a sense, they still do the same thing, right? But digital currency, cryptocurrency would completely change that. It's the evolution, right, of money. There's always certain drawbacks, right? So if you have something that's privately owned, right, you don't know if the founders, just like you're telling me earlier, the founder of that the Bitcoin thing,
The Bitcoin
um,
Foundation, yeah.
yeah, the Bitcoin Foundation, right? They took certain liberties, right, because there were people in power, and now we're talking about the government. This is why I say it's a catch-21, right? Well, the government, right? You think okay, well they may not take certain liberties, just hoping, um, because there's tons of people monitoring it. But then again, right now they can actually, in a sense, spy on you, right? Because it's digital currency, right? And anything digitally, I mean, you can find someone if you wanted to
Mm-hmm.
on the web. So it's the same thing. So like digital currency, they can like monitor you, right? And like, what's the whole thing? Like, if I were to go out and buy like a can of dip or something, right? They could see that this guy, he dips a lot. Oh, hey, get a call from the government. Hey, yeah, man, do you like this brand or something? That's the catch-21. There's good and bad to both sides.
Yeah, I think in order for the government to get in on it, the government has to have an interest in it. And
Exactly.
so this idea that, hey, one, facilitate transactions, like I said, 767 trillion in
Mhm.
2016 of clearing by Fedwire. So
Right.
anything that can make that more efficient, they're looking into it, sure. But at the same time, hey, the government has more action or more information of the action that's going on in the economy. I'm sure they would love that too. China's even looking at doing. I mean, the People's Bank of China
Right.
said they plan to have sort of access, this block access to domestic and foreign crypto exchanges, and so they're testing their own digital currency. Some people say it's kind of like China's way of trying to kind of control domestic and foreign transactions if their coin can be adopted, right? Because that's kind of the nature of the beast here that we've been talking about, the legitimacy of it, right?
Yeah.
So, and once again, if you didn't get in, it's just because you're a good person, right? It was highly suspect in the beginning. So don't beat yourself up if you didn't become one of those Bitcoin millionaires or trillionaires. But this is the kind of thing now. There's this really strange interplay of legitimacy where you have some governments banning it pretty harshly. I mean, like you said, Turkey, but even India. It came up with some regulations that are a little bit more strict because they were going to ban anyone even holding Bitcoin. So they said back in March of this year, in March of 2021, that they were proposing a law that was going to ban possession, issuance, mining, trading, and transferring crypto assets. So that basically just means don't touch, right? But then at the same time, you see wider acceptance, like the U.S. looking at building their own digital ledger, China, and then even Sotheby's, which is the big auction house,
Right.
is actually going to have one of their first auctions where they're going to actually auction off a piece of digital art, and they will accept cryptocurrencies to pay for it. It's called Love is in the Air. It's a piece of it's going to well, actually, sorry. Love is in the Air. It's actually a physical piece of art. So in the past, they have actually accepted cryptocurrency for digital art, right? So they're already on the train. But now they're actually going to, for the first time, accept cryptocurrency for physical artwork. So yeah, there's a piece called Love is in the Air. And so, they will actually accept cryptocurrencies for the bidding on this piece of art.
You don't think that would... that's interesting. But then again, if I were like I'm not going to say this, man. If I were like a criminal or someone that's super intelligent in that field, that's another way to launder money, right? Buy expensive artwork. Yeah.
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 Well,
yeah.
You're never going to get that out of the system, right?
Exactly.
You're never going to get that out of the system as far as
worth a try. But no,
I was trying to find a new way to escape, avoid detection. What's crypto, no crypto, but I mean, it's true. You buy some crypto with stolen or illicit funds, use that money to buy physical art, because before Sotheby's was accepting crypto for only digital art, but now for physical pieces of art. And then now you've kind of moved yourself into that old school legitimacy category, in terms of rich people with a lot of excess cash collecting art as a store of value. So you got a point, know.
Well, man, that really interesting topic, man, for today's podcast, man. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or
just in terms of this whole movement trying to legitimize cryptocurrencies by kind of having the wider public have access to them and accept them? There's this thing called the Crypto Giving Pledge, and their motto is taking crypto mainstream through charitable giving. So basically, they want anyone who signs the pledge to give away 1% of their crypto assets per year to charity, and that will kind of mainline cryptocurrency trading through charitable giving.
Nice. That's really cool.
So there's stuff. It's not all, Silk Road, shady, dark web.
Not all. Yeah, exactly.
Even though that could be how you got your crypto, but then you can give it to charity and do some good with it. So there's that.
Well, thank you guys for joining us once again on podcast 3. Make sure you guys tune in next time for our next podcast. We appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Syndicate Theory podcast. We hope that you're able to attain knowledge or form an opinion on today's topic. If you enjoyed the podcast and would like to share your theories or knowledge, please leave a comment. The Syndicate Theory podcast is powered by open-minded intellectuals like you. So if you would like to hear more, please subscribe and leave a like. As Ray Kroc stated, the quality of a leader is reflected in the standards they set for themselves. Until next time.